So you may be wondering what it is. I've talked about it a little bit. So that's this group. It's an unincorporated body politic. It's a holding company. They've combined their international and global jurisdictions, and they're mutually held by the United States of America. It is the United States of America that is the direct party to that equity contract called the Constitution for the United States of America. So there are 3 lawful summoning authorities charged with the responsibility of calling the state assemblies into session. A, the President of the United States of America, the unincorporated Federation of States, vacated since 1860. Then there's a quorum of 9 state assemblies already in session. This was not possible because Texas was the only state still in session. The owner of the Great Seals, the head of the state of the Federation of States. The Federation of States was formed in 1776 for the states to act together as one body in international and global jurisdictions. It has no national level powers at all. It is therefore not in itself a sovereign body. So I misspoke earlier. It's not a sovereign body. It is an agency of the states representing the sovereign bodies of the states of the Union and the foreign international global jurisdictions. Remember, we talked about the sovereign soil jurisdictions and how it was protected and isolated from the rest of the world. So all of those 77 counties that make up our state, they operate through the state assembly, through their business assembly, which coordinates with the federation and gives the federation their mutually held international and global powers. Okay, global powers vouchsafed from the states for their mutual defense and protection. So here's the voluntary hierarchy of sovereign power. I'm going to use that term hierarchy loosely, but so mankind breathes and bleeds with standalone sovereign power. That's the top. Then you got the state national, which is a lawful person that a man or a woman can assume. They can operate in their capacity as a lawful person in the national soil jurisdiction. So by the way, if you want to still have a constitution, which is part equity contract and also part trust indenture, if you want that to exist, there have to be state nationals. If you only have men and women and you don't have the state national status, then you don't have a constitution. So the state citizen is the American state national accepting duties and obligations in the international land. Then you have state citizens operating the unincorporated state of the Union, Oklahoma, right? Actually, the General Assembly is operated by state nationals and state citizens, right? But it is the state citizens that operate their business assembly, right? And that's the connection you have with the Federation of States. So remember we were talking about capacities? So now you have all these different capacities that a man could serve in, operate in, right? He can operate in his capacity as a man, in his private capacity. Or he could be a state national, which is a private person, a lawful person, and say, I've got a constitution that I'm a party to. And then actually it's the Federation of States that's the party to the Constitution, but this Federation of States, they receive their international and global jurisdiction powers through the state assemblies, which therefore get it from the state national. So you're starting to see the hierarchy here. Oklahoma is a member of the unincorporated Federation of States. The Federation of States hold those international global powers of the states. The Federation of States is a direct party to the constitutions. So there you go. State of the Union, Oklahoma is a sovereign body. The Federation of States is not a sovereign body. It is unincorporated, but it's not a sovereign body. In 1776, to operate in international global business realms, the Federation needed to operate under a recognized sovereign. So this is where it gets real special. A lot of Americans are not aware of this part of our history. The state assemblies, they wanted to be recognized as sovereign nation states, right? But they also wanted to combine their international powers and global powers into one holding company, but that company could not be recognized unless it was operating under a recognized sovereign, right? To clear this obstacle, the founders used the sovereign status of William Belcher, a patriot from Connecticut who later served in the Continental Army. So they acquired sovereignty in England as a result of the Norman Conquest. William Belcher believed that people should learn to be self-governing. So when we talk about the American Republic as being an experiment it really is that in several ways. William Beshire believed that people should learn to be self-governing, and that's what Americans were all about. So the great seals of both the United States national, that's your 50 states that are all the collection of their national counties, right? That's the United States, the Union States, and then you got the United States of America, international land. The great seals of both of those are part of the Beshire coat of arms array. So as a result, William Beshire and his descendants became another safeguard for the new American government. The hereditary office of head of state passes down to James Clinton Beshire and our American government because every ship that sails under the great seals, meaning all corporations, all ships, all commerce taking place worldwide by American vessels. So commerce still needs to exist. And you still have corporations that in some places need to exist. But you don't need these commercial vessels that were created for us and all of the fraud that's been going on, right? But of the commerce that does exist, the legitimate commerce, it sails under the great seals. So that's how we are represented in the international community, because the head of state of our Federation of States is James Clinton Beshire, who is a descendant of the sovereign William Beshire. So the people who run the Federation's administration come from all over the country. They're volunteers. Some are related to the Beshires, some are not. Here's some extra notes. Beshire is an anglicized version of, Beshire. Family is Norman French, not British. That's kind of helpful to know. None of us want to be British now. Beshire is a clan name, like McDonald. It's proper to think of the Beshires as a clan. James Clinton Beshire is the husband of Anna von Reitz. If you haven't put that together yet, now you're starting to understand. So he is the American head of state, the postmaster, lawful summoning authority of the American States Assemblies. And Anna von Reitz has accepted the obligation of the fiduciary office, handling global and international business. This is why she gives that Monday weekly meeting and updates us on what is going on in the Federation of States and the international community. What Anna von Reitz is doing is she is supervising what we are doing until we get fully seated. So due to all the relationships described above, the American State Assemblies is the only organization which has summoned the 50 state assemblies by the book, all the way, in harmony with that organic constitution. So that's what sets us apart from other assemblies that are standing up and saying they are the Oklahoma Assembly or they are the Texas Assembly, right? Because there are a few others out there. And I don't know what's going to happen in the next, 2 or 5 years, but just understand that's what sets us apart. We were summoned by the Federation of States with James Clinton Beshire as the head of state, who is a sovereign. And yes, I know Americans are all sovereign, but James Clinton Beshire is a recognized sovereign in the international community. That's what's important there. So the responsibility of the Federation has two main responsibilities. It is the voice and authority for Americans in the international and global jurisdiction. It represents our interest in international court proceedings. This is all these notices you've been seeing that Anna von Reitz has been serving. That's what she's doing. It acts as the holding company to hold and manage the mutually held powers. It has proven and announced our assemblies standing to the international courts. So they have told the international courts that we have standing, and to other sovereign powers, declaring our lawful standing as the only legitimate government for the 50 states of the Union. So Anna von Reitz established the Living Law Firm. You may have heard about that group in Alaska, a group of lawyers who gave up their bar cards. James Beshire, Anna von Reitz, the Living Law Firm, other researchers. They've all been pushing back the encroachment of corporate feudalism. They have been working to restore our republic and create peace by finding and applying lawful remedies to international crimes against the people. Although they are not a sovereign body, it does have the fiduciary obligation to ensure that the assemblies created are peaceable, composed of qualified people living within the borders of each state who have declared and recorded their political status. From there, to provide the discipline, framework, and guidance to establish the 4 pillars. Remember, I talked about the General Assembly, the Jure Assembly, the Business Assembly, and the Militia Assembly. So please note, this process is not given to interpretation. It has been followed to the letter. So the Texas Assembly has already gone through this once before. I think the Michigan Assembly was dissolved. If we do not do it peaceably and according to the law, the Federation has the power to dissolve our assembly and rebuild it. And that is a waste of time. It's not permanent. It's not a devastating blow. We'll never come back. It's not like that, but it's a waste of time. And so they must ensure the legal and peaceable nature of the process in the state assemblies that result from it. So what I'm saying by waste of time is, let's not let that happen. Let's remain peaceable. We got to keep we got to stay vigilant and make sure we're doing everything by the book. And we need to make sure that people do not come in and infiltrate and try to take our assembly in a different direction, because that has happened with other assemblies. And it wasn't the end of the world. That assembly was simply dissolved and new officers were put in place, new officials, and then they rebuilt it. And we don't need to do that. So, so our activities could be mistaken. And here's another reason. Could be mistaken as hostile actions and legally suppressed by military force by the municipal and British territorial governments, right? Some of them are looking for an excuse to do that. So the Federation has provided our assemblies with declarations to correct our political status. This is the 1779 and 928s. They vet and they assign our coordinators for each state of the Union to begin the assembling process. They provide oversight and protection for each state during this process. So they really are, supervising us. They're kind of babysitting us until we get our feet underneath us. Coordinators are all state nationals serving as Federation officers under their direction and instruction. If assemblies get off track, like I said before, the Federation has the ability to dissolve an entire assembly in order to be reorganized the correct way. An American State Assembly is considered fully seated when it is composed of properly declared and recorded Americans, fully operational with all 4 pillars operating and all offices filled. Once fully seated, the State Assembly inherits all rights, titles, and interests for the state. And the State Assembly is responsible for performing under the treaties and constitutional agreements already established. These are the same treaties that were negotiated by the Federation of States for us on our behalf. So we are responsible for supporting the restored American government at Reconstruction and for the conduct of the restored Confederation and Federal Republic. Remember I said the British territorial is impersonating our state of Oklahoma, state of Maine, state of Georgia, because the de jure state ofs is the capital the state of Maine, and the British territorial is impersonating it with the lowercase the state of Maine. But once we get it stood up, once our business assembly stands up that Confederation and Federal Republic, we are now responsible for operating it lawfully. So it's important to say that the Federation is doing their job to make sure that we peaceably assemble and that we are fully seated. And Anna von Reitz, among any fiduciary that we've had prior to this, which is these trust management organizations that are in breach of trust and in breach of their fiduciary responsibilities, Anna von Reitz is the only fiduciary that's been shouting it from the rooftops that we need to assemble our state assemblies. So they're doing their job and they're protecting us in the international and global jurisdictions, and they are notifying them of our standing as the only de jure, which means lawful, the only lawful state assemblies with sovereign power to manage our own affairs and civil government, right? They've been doing all of that, and they are also supervising us to make sure we do it lawfully the right way. And we want to stay that way. So if we don't like being under, if we prefer to be fully seated and we don't want to be under that supervision for very long, then we need to get the work done and stand up our assembly. So there you go. There's room for questions.